I'm thinking we're here in front of an audience of 18, 20, 24-year-olds, and when I was that age, I wasn't thinking much about journalism being dangerous or adventuresome or maybe even changing the world. And I'm wondering where you were when you were this age and how you got into journalism.
Well, I was growing up in Mexico City. I was born in 1963, and when I was a teenager, it was we were coming to the 80s, in which modernity was there. We started getting all this American TV in Mexico, and we were supposed to become a developing country or on the way to development. And it was very strange to me to see that on one hand we had all this poverty. We're right now a country of 104 million people, and 40 million people are really sunk into deep poverty. So I saw that, and then on the other hand I saw this country that was supposedly being really modern. I grew up in a middle-class family with 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and that made a big difference for me. I wanted to be a poet. Some of you know that because I've been around talking about this. And then one teacher told me, you know, you're going to be a terrible poet. You have to become a journalist because you're too worried with reality. And I did, in fact, publish my first book, which was a poetry book. It was very bad. It's not very good, but I did publish it. And then I just knew that I was too worried, in fact, with reality, and I had to do something about it instead of getting depressed or just swear because of things were happening. So I just knew that I had the ability to talk and listen to people, and I started reading the newspapers and watching TV in Mexico. And when watching the news in Mexico, I knew exactly what I did not want to become. And that was a newscast on Mexican TV, the way they portray false reality. So I just wanted to be a journalist that was there writing for newspapers and listening to people and telling the truth.
You worked a little bit in radio and TV and write a column. Can you give us just a summary of the kind of journalistic work you've done?
Yes, in fact, at the beginning, the first job I found, as most of you when you get out will find out, it was in anything they wanted to give me. Basically, I started covering cultural issues and art galleries and stuff like that, and I interviewed artists, and so I had to learn about art. And then I started going to the Mayan zone. I live in Cancun. I started going to the Mayan zone, and I interviewed women and children, and I noticed there was this constant issue of violence against women and children, and with the poverty issues, with the hunger and the lack of water and services. So I started working and writing about that, and I noticed that people really care about this. It wasn't very famous. My column wasn't very famous, but people read that, and they started stopping me in the streets and saying, hey, you wrote this, and that was really important to me, or I understood this. And then I started doing public radio. They didn't pay me doing that, of course. It was public. But it was the most exciting time of my career when I started doing radio, and I noticed that people started calling us, and it was a dialogue. And that's when I learned that journalism is all about dialogue. And if you ask me, I love writing, but I think the best media is radio. I really like it. And then I did TV for 5 years, also public TV. And then they fired me because they thought it was obscene to show a female condom. So you never know.
What is it about journalism that continues to attract you? Why do you do it?
Well, I repeat this all the time, I guess, but I do believe that we can change the world. I mean, I don't like the actual media, what is going on with the media in the world, at least the most powerful media, the mainstream media in general, because it's centered in giving, like in show business, like a spectacle of violence, and if it's not something that you can sell, then it's not important. I don't believe in that. I do believe that journalism is a way to contact human beings, and we have to go back to that, to being humans, to respect other people, to understand suffering, to be compassionate, to understand that we live in a very, very tiny world that we are destroying because we're not really understanding what it means to live together. And I believe in that. So every time I interview someone anywhere in the world and I listen to the story, I know that if somebody in Mexico reads a story from a little girl in New York that has gone through living in the streets for 2 years and is surviving that and is proud to be a girl, then I know that's an important story to me, and it's a human life that is there to be shown to other people. So I guess that's really important.